We're going to move on with a look through the top headlines in the international press with Claire Williams. Hi there, Claire.
Hello, Catherine.
And a big story that we were talking about, for many weeks and months, is big trouble in Brazil, political problems. The president suspended and now heading for trial.
Exactly. Now, actually, I had a bit of trouble finding good headlines in the Brazilian press on Dilma Rousseff's issues in the political scene because they're dominated by the Olympics. And also, I get the impression that Brazilians are sick and tired of hearing about this political crisis. As you said, it's been going on for months now. But it looks like it will actually probably draw to an end for the suspended president, Dilma Rousseff, at the end of the month. She's going to go to trial. That's after the Wednesday's vote in the Senate. The senators voted to put her to trial, and she will quite likely be fully impeached. It was expected because the Senate was the ones who voted for her to be suspended last May.
And is there anything now that Dilma Rousseff can do to avoid this?
Well, it's interesting. I found an interesting blog written on O Globo. O Globo is one of the biggest news websites and newspapers in Brazil. Ricardo Noblat, he wrote that, ironically, the only way that Rousseff might be able to save her skin is if the Petrobras scandal blows up before her trial, so in the next few weeks. And that's because the Petrobras scandal was this corruption scandal. It affected members of her own Workers' Party. Some of them were accused of accepting bribes in exchange for contracts. She was not involved. She's not been accused of corruption in this scandal. But Michel Temer, the man who has replaced her now as interim president, he's up to his neck in corruption allegations. So Ricardo Noblat is saying if the Petrobras scandal blows up in the next few weeks, actually it could hurt Michel Temer, the interim president, her rival, more than it hurts Rousseff, which is ironic because the Petrobras scandal actually hurt her in the first place. Very ironic, very complicated. This is Brazilian politics for you.
Exactly, very complicated web. And somehow Bernie Sanders has got involved.
He certainly has. So Bernie Sanders has come out saying this trial is not a legal trial, it's a political trial. And he said many people in Brazil and outside Brazil see it as more like a coup d'etat than any kind of legal, judicial, fair process. And what's interesting, and he makes an interesting point, is that Michel Temer, so this interim president who's replaced Rousseff at the moment, abolished the Ministry for Women and Racial Equalities and made up a cabinet of his own of only men and all of them white.
All right, interesting to hear from Bernie
Not good
Sanders
news.
there. Let's move on entirely to new region. We'll look to the Middle East. Fighting has intensified in Yemen, where many hundreds of people have died over more than the last year.
Yeah, well, it's intensified because the peace process, the UN-backed peace process in Kuwait, broke down earlier on this week without any kind of resolution. So Saudi Arabia has gone back in with its airstrikes. Saudi Arabia is backing the Yemeni government, which is fighting against the Houthi rebels who are taking control or in control of the capital, Sanaa. L'Humanité, the French communist paper, has an excellent article on this. It says the name of the article, the war has started again for the profit of Riyadh and arms dealers. Now, basically what L'Humanité is saying is the Saudi-led coalition has just received 150 tanks from the United States and 30 helicopters from France. So really this war is good news for any arms dealers trying to sell to Saudi Arabia. And also, from Saudi Arabia's point of view, Saudi Arabia believes the Houthi rebels are backed by Iran, Saudi Arabia's biggest regional rival. And according to Humanity, Saudi Arabia is using this opportunity to basically grab as much power as it possibly can in Yemen.
Yeah, very much seen as a proxy war, isn't it? People talking about the chances of the Houthi rebels holding on to or losing the Yemeni capital, Sanaa.
Well, there's an article in Asharq Al-Awsat, that's an Arabic paper based in London. The paper says the Houthis are in a race against time to legitimise themselves. So by force, they took over Sanaa. They're in there with their tanks and their soldiers and all of that. And now they are installing local Houthi governors in Sanaa, in neighbourhoods and nearby towns. So basically what the Houthis are doing is they're trying to no longer be seen as rebels, but be seen as a legitimate political force. They've also deleted a whole load of government data. They're trying to delete any trace of the former Yemeni government.
All right, well, let's move on to a completely different story now. This one's from the UK, and it's some sad news that's very much thrown the spotlight onto one young man in his 20s, quite unexpectedly.
Certainly is. He's become known as Britain's most eligible bachelor. This is Hugh Grosvenor, and the British papers are trying to find out as much possible as they possibly can about him. They're racing against each other to find out who is this young 25 years old. He has just become Britain's third richest man. He's a billionaire. He's been called the baby-faced billionaire because he does look quite young.
He does.
You can see a picture of him there. His father, the Duke of Westminster, he died earlier on in the week. It's believed he had a heart attack. And so his son, Hugh, has taken on his title, his fortunes, and all of his land. Land in London, land in Oxfordshire, land in Cheshire, land in Spain even. Seems a bit unfair because Hugh Grosvenor actually has 3 older sisters. But this is the law of primogeniture. And it means because he's a man, he gets everything. It's an archaic British law that one would have thought would be not something that we would be seeing in the 21st century. Even the royal family, before Kate and William had their first boy, turned out to be a boy, they actually abolished this law within their family. But the Grosvenors have kept it on. So Hugh Grosvenor is now the Duke of Westminster, and he's also Prince George's godfather. So
the
links.
Unsurprisingly, the royal family perhaps friendly with this family.
They certainly are. And the Grosvenor family is always trying to say, we've tried to bring our children up in a very ordinary kind of way. But you can see there the Sun has found some articles of some old photos, probably on Facebook, of Hugh Grayson having a lot of fun at Newcastle University, which I think shows he probably, to some extent, had a rather normal British student life, if not his life will perhaps not be so normal now.
Indeed. Well, all right. Good to see him having a good time anyway. Thanks very much. Claire Williams looking through some of the top stories in the international press there.